People, they really don't care about the brand. They care about the people that are behind the message. It's really critical that there's a personality behind the content. And that's a game changer.
Welcome to Content Kingdom. This is your backstage pass to the people, tools, and the trends shaping the future of content marketing.
John, you're like a one-man ocean of content, you know? Let's go through a couple of the things that you've done. So first, you're author of a book called Mastering the Trade, right?
Yeah, this is a big monster. Wrote this back in the first edition back in 2005. I didn't know that I was a writer, and it was probably the equivalent of like having a baby, but it's certainly paid a lot of dividends.
So you had a book baby in 2005. Congratulations. I think your book's ready to go to college now, or it's in college. At least edition one. Okay. Would you also consider yourself a YouTuber? I mean, I'm looking at all your content. You got content all over YouTube. You a YouTube guy?
Yeah. I would say it's not, there's certainly a lot of more advanced things I could be doing on YouTube, but at least just getting the content out there because people find it.
Yeah. Cool. You've written articles on Medium, some seriously baller articles that we're going to talk about here today too, right? So that's you.
Yeah. I found the Medium articles that's been an interesting one because instead of posting it on your own site, you have something out there that's searchable on another site, and so that's been a good venue for us.
Nice. And then to go back to what I said at the beginning, you're also the CEO of Simpler Trading, a company where content is your business, is it not? I mean, you guys are teaching webinars, courses, you've got research papers, and you're known the world over in the industry for people who want to learn how to trade. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. And it's 100% content. It's like, if we're not creating content, then, we don't exist.
Nice. So, okay, John. So what did I miss? What else am I missing about all of the content that you create?
Well, I think what's interesting, what we found about content is that, so we have our company, Simpler Trading, and we have a group of us as traders. And one of the errors that we made, I think initially, was really focusing on the brand of Simpler Trading. And what we really found is that people don't, especially in the trading industry, they really don't care about the brand. They care about the people that are behind the message. And so while Simpler Trading can be this umbrella, it's really critical that there's a personality behind the content. And that's a game changer. If it's a bland corporate message, nobody cares. But if it's personal and, it's not perfect and it kind of captures, all the pros and cons and flaws of the human existence, it tends to do really well.
All right. Now I did not listen to my mom who told me I should have been a trader, but I should have been a day trader. But so I don't know that much about day trading per se, but I would imagine that if I'm looking around for day trader content, I want to talk to somebody who's a winner, right? Like I want to talk to a hitter who's done it, not somebody who like writes an article about it, right? So is that part of it as well?
Yeah. So a big part of it is like we're doing it and then documenting what we're doing while we're doing it, and then that becomes content.
Yeah. And a quick question, just because I don't know this, is on Simpler Trading, like, do your subscribers, can they watch you live trade? Like, are you live streaming sometimes?
Yeah, so we'll do more screen shares, and then someone on their own computer can just say, "Oh wow!" So we might have 1,000 people from all over the world watching somebody place a live trade, and we've just found that that's a real connection. And there's risks in that because you're gonna make mistakes and do stuff, but people seem to appreciate that.
Well, I mean, to me, that sounds like it's the proof, right? Because there's zero BS. Like anybody can write about the trading day after the day's over.
Yeah,
you should have done this,
we're
right?
all smart in hindsight. Yeah.
Right. But to do it in real time, that's pretty amazing. So, okay. So, all right. So John, author, CEO, YouTuber, article writer on YouTube or on Medium, it's almost overwhelming. And I think some of our listeners are like, where do I begin? Because, it's a lot. So tell us, John, where did it all begin? What was the first piece of content that you wrote as a professional?
Yeah. And I think a lot of it, when we started, it was kind of, let's throw out some trade ideas and things like that. And then at some point, people want to learn more about that. And so your content, the initial content was around, detailing out specific strategies in trading and things like that. But then eventually it kind of morphed into kind of the day in the life of a trader. This was a good day. This was a bad day. My wife wrote an article, Maria, about how to be married to a trader. And, that's our niche. And so just kind of hitting on all the real life kind of challenges of being a trader. And a lot of it's like the psychology, if you get messed up and start doing stupid things and things like that. But it really just became something that started with a written word and then gradually got into things like webinars, shooting stuff for YouTube and things like that too. And we just found that, anything that we could get out there, and the easiest way we found to do it is just document it while you're actually doing it. And so we record everything we do all the time, and then we can kind of slice and dice that, use it for content.
Got it. And going back to like when you got started, you were obviously a trader, just trading your own account for a while, right? And then you started writing content. So how much time elapsed between you figuring out and being a trader versus you being a trader who then wrote and started just the very first time you sent something out that was advice to another trader?
Yeah, no, my initial dream as a trader was to be able to leave corporate America. And so that took a
Okay.
while. And at some point, I left corporate America and now I'm trading. And then, Maria was working at the time. And after like 2 years, you're kind of sitting there alone with your goldfish staring at a computer. And it's like, all right, you kind of miss the community. And at that point, just started posting stuff online. Here's some stuff we're doing. And as I got feedback, it's like, okay, well, people are responding to this, so let's just kind of do more. And so, there definitely was zero planning. Like there was no grand, like, okay, we're going to map it out. Here's the funnel and here's all this stuff. It was none of that. It was, well, hey, people are liking this. Let's write an article. Okay.
Okay.
Let's do a talk. And you just kind of one thing after another like that.
Wow. And what year was that roughly?
This started mostly mid 2000s. It just started kind of slowly kind of building up into that, and really didn't really kind of hit full steam ahead until 2010 or something like that.
Okay. So you wrote the book in 2005, right? So walk me through, what was that like?
Man, that was hard.
Yeah.
I had this whole plan. It was McGraw-Hill, this whole plan, and I finally realized 3 months before the book was due that there was no way in hell that I was going to make that deadline. And so I switched my schedule up where I would write from 9 o'clock at night till 6 o'clock in the morning, and then sleep till noon, and then do some trading and things like that. I had to do that for 3 months straight to make the deadline, and
No
it's
way.
it was hard, and but I was super passionate about it. And I think through the combination of Taco Bell and red wine, I was able to kind of get through it. And there's been updates since then, but yeah, it was a kind of a monster, but I did, break it up into parts and things like that too. But McGraw-Hill was asked a couple of times, like, hey, do you got another book in you? I'm like, no.
That was it. One book, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what advice would you give to someone who's trying to get a book out the door, especially like a nonfiction book like this? Do you have a particular brand of red wine or a particular taco you go to, or
Yeah.
what else would you recommend?
California Cabernet is pretty good. It gets the juices flowing and stuff like that. The great thing today is that there's so many things, and we know people who do this, that there's, it's kind of like there's people out there that will help you write the book. You can self-publish it, and by self-publishing it, you have so much more flexibility. So if I want to order, say 1,000 copies of my book, Mashing the Trade from McGraw-Hill, it's actually cheaper for me to go on Amazon and order it from there because it's still
really?
$30 a book or something like that, even at a discount.
Oh, wow.
So there are advantages to doing it yourself these days, and then using it, as a front end kind of a lead source.
Okay. All right. Got it. What was the impact the book had on your business, especially in those early days around 2005? This is like 20 years ago, right? So
yeah, time flies, right? And part of it is when somebody reads the book, what's great about it is if they resonate it with it, and then of course, you have your links and stuff in there. If they resonate with the book and they kind of get to know you, they're like, what else do you got? And so that's really great. And typically some of our clients that we've worked with that have been with us the longest started off finding the book. And so that kind of led us, things like, okay, well, how do we get the book out to more people and different things like that. But it's been the other part though, I didn't really, wasn't prepared for, is that the book kind of gives you this, oh, he's an author. So then all of a sudden I had these exchanges and brokers flying me all over the world, first class to go to, Beijing, Shanghai, Hong Kong, Mumbai, and give talks to traders. And that was really cool because you meet a lot of great people, and that ends up in different partnerships and things like that. And so the book had a lot of dividends that I wasn't expecting, which was great.
Fascinating. All right. So really no second book. Do you think a second book would double your opportunities, or is that just not in the cards?
I've certainly thought about it, and it's different. I find, as you get a little older, your wiring is not quite as fast as it was, when you're younger. It's like, oh,
Mhm.
okay, and kids and all that kind of stuff. And the thing, though, especially like today, you could kind of dictate your thoughts and then hire a ghostwriter and or use AI and different things like that too. So the reality of it is I need to do probably two more and just kind of set a deadline and kind of use the tools that are available today to just knock it out.
All right. All right. Well, you and me both, buddy.
Yeah, it's a get in line, right?
Yeah. So, what do you think was the moment that you realized that content was your business? I mean, for a long time, you're making money trading, right? I mean, you were a self-sufficient trader just doing that for a long time, and then content became a business. So, walk me through. Was that the origin of Simpler, or was it before Simpler?
So Simpler started off as just a simple membership, and it was a newsletter.
Okay.
So, here's a nightly newsletter. Here's what's going on. And then we kind of started branching out. And as we kind of, I kind of like hired people and partnered with people. And then, you start to think like, oh, okay, well, how do you run a business and all the different things that are involved? And so from there is just a matter of what did we, I always find customers pay with their wallet. You can whiteboard something to death, but if people ain't buying it, it wasn't a good idea. And so it was really just kind of throwing stuff out there and seeing what people resonate with. And then when we'd see, and so we found that people really liked screen shares. So we would do a live screen share and do content around that, or live trading. People loved when you're like sharing your screen and doing live trading. And so we would see the content that people would really resonate with the people in our space. And it wasn't all too about like, oh, this is all these great winning things, but also like, look, this is what happens when it doesn't work. Here's what happens when you have a bad day. And it's just there's an audience out there that just really resonated with that. And so then that's fun. You kind of go out there and explore and see what you get back.
Okay. All right. And so you're in the content business. And so I think one thing that people who are in the content business struggle with is, you want to monetize your content, right? But the only way you're going to monetize your content is if people can kind of see your content. So you have to sort of give them something. And if you don't give them enough, then they're like, I don't know about everyone else, but I get resentful. I'm like, I don't even know if I trust this guy, right? So walk me through your philosophy on like, how much do you give away for free? And then then what do you do? Like, how do you keep that? How do you build trust? And then also like be fair to yourself for all the work you're doing?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I always say that you've got to kind of figure out where the free line is and how far can you keep moving that free line so that there's more and more value before it crosses over into kind of a premium. And, and at least in this industry, the free, I think before we would try things like, hey, I like this great indicator, click here to see it or pay $19 to see it versus, let's just actually show it to them. And at the end of it, if they want more information, great. They can, they can log in and they can buy it or different things like that. But just the idea of just giving value. And you hit the nail on the head right there is that if you kind of shortchange that, you lose their trust. And it's a relationship. It is absolutely a relationship based on trust. And it's just saying like, hey, I'm going to give you a lot of value here. And at the end of it, if you're cool, if that answered all your questions and you don't need anything else from us, that's a win because we help that person. They'll probably go out and maybe they'll tell other people about it. They didn't need anything beyond that. That's totally fine. But I think the most important thing is that there's value created in that. And then, you just kind of find where that right line is to then when you step over that, then it goes into a premium and then just defining, what that means.
Yeah. One thing as I was getting to know your content that I was shocked by was just the volume of it that is free. I mean, I think a lot of people do something free. They're like, I'm going to keep it to 5 minutes or 10 minutes or something. I've got this video up here and it's about an indicator and it's an hour and 23 minutes long, right? I mean, this is, this is like a lot of free that you've just given out. I mean, let's take a look at some of this stuff and see what, and walk me through kind of, so before we get going here, here's something. Now this is right off of YouTube, right? I mean, anybody looking at my screen can note this or Google it or, search for it on YouTube and they can get this. So this is, hour and 23 minutes. This free indicator changed my life. Walk me through, like, that's a lot of generous content you put out there. Why did you do that?
Yeah, well, so on something like this, and if we're looking at, what are our goals of putting out the content? And one is, we want to help people that are going through, the trading journey right now. And so what can we do with that? And then ideally at the end of it, if at the end of it, they're like, man, that was amazing. And, those tools are interesting and I would like to have those tools, then great. That's kind of where the premium portion comes in. It's like, all right, so now if you're like a programmer and you're very technical, you could watch that video and just create it yourself. So that does happen too. But for a large percentage of people, they kind of like that done for you kind of a thing. And it's like, all right, you know what? That's great. And, the tool's $300 or $500 or something like that. I like it. Give me the tool. And so the idea is at the end of that, it's, at the end of an hour and 20 minutes, you feel comfortable that, this is something that would help me. And I think the only way they're going to know is that you just lay it all out there versus, I think if we charged for this, then, how many people wouldn't get to see it? And I think that also would impact, any premium stuff that you have.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in the first 12 minutes, what you've gone through in here is you've gone through like, hey, I made $1 million doing this trade in 2014, and you show the trade, and then you show the property you built or bought after you got that trade, which I can vouch that I've been there. It's real.
Yeah.
You're not bullshitting the audience here. This is so then you go through and you document that it didn't happen just once. It's happened like a bunch of times. And then, here it is. Like, here's the trade, right? Here's your free indicator. So so you're saying, okay, your strategy here is somebody smart with a computer program, like my son could watch this thing and he could go maybe take a shot at this, right? But anybody with $300 who would like to just get it done and get going, then that's the sell, right? That's like, after all of this, they're going to be convinced that you definitely have the indicator, like it's going to work, right?
Yeah, and I think the idea with this is that if you just kind of show like here's different examples of how it worked, here's some situations where it didn't work, and if you kind of get if the logic and the cadence makes sense, and of course over the years I've built up a larger kind of account to trade. But when I was first trading, it's like, okay, I got a $5,000 account, I'm gonna buy some options or some stock, and it's the same principles apply. And what's great about it though is that I think a lot of times when people start trading, especially short-term trading, so longer-term investing, totally different. But short-term trading, a lot of times people can get messed up psychologically. Like, they chase and, make all kinds of mistakes and things like that. And this is just a way to kind of flow more with how the market naturally moves and not get kind of sucked up into the, to the noise and things like that.
Yeah. Funny enough, you've got competitors who are advertising and they're doing the exact opposite. They're slamming a $47 indicator on there and being like, buy this in 30, in a 15-second ad. So I think that's really funny because somebody's going to look at that. Some might go for that, but I think most people, if they're in for 12 or 15 minutes, they're moving over. So that's pretty interesting. Cool. All right. Well, the YouTube content is incredible and it is generous. How often do you put this kind of stuff out there, like hour-long things like this?
So there's different things. So that the one that we just looked at, that was something that was more based, it was a kind of a more what I would just call carefully planned out. Here's some slides and all the kind of things. Every day though, and we'll kind of do we have a webinar that's going on every day for 7 hours while the market is open. And so, and I do maybe 2 hours a week, one day here for an hour, one day here for an hour. And then we have a group of other traders, 15 or 16 traders. And then they're talking about what they're doing, but all of it's recorded. And so now that's something that is, since that was premium content. So we put a lot of that content behind a paywall.
Yeah.
And then
that makes sense.
And so that's content that's kind of behind a paywall. But then sometimes what we'll do is maybe if it's a week or two past and it's not as relevant, if it's a really good one, we could post that then on YouTube. So you could see it free kind of after the fact. But if you want to watch it real time, then that's more of a premium.
Got it. So, all right. So use the live factor for your stuff to make that, which I think makes sense. And I think most people would feel like they're being treated fairly on that one. So paywall for the live stuff. And, that makes a lot of sense. So, okay. So let's change gears a little bit because you've done some other amazing things in some other directions as well. One of them that I found really surprising was Medium. So you write articles on Medium from time to time. Let's bring this one up and take a look. And for those that are listening to the audio, I'll kind of describe this a little bit, but, this one I got to say was just kind of blew me away, right? Like here we are, and it's a recap of the year 2020, which you released on February 2nd of 2021. So when it came out, it was very fresh. So I realized it's a little older now, but you did a 1,270% year, 18.2 million trading, which is really, I mean, that's astounding, right? And you go on in Medium to just talk about everything that happened. Walk me through, why did you write this piece of content?
Well, in first, there's some in trading. There's sometimes when everything just kind of comes together, and if 2020, that was COVID, and after the big sell-off, I mean, things just went straight up, and so there are times when it's like momentum like that, and I kind of keep a trading journal, and the point of it was just to say that this was this fantastic year, and it was hard. Like there was a lot of emotions happening with it because all of a sudden it's like that was more money I'd ever made trading in my life. And just kind of documenting that and really getting into kind of the psychology and there were definitely some weeks that were bad, and I think 3 months that I didn't make money, and just kind of talking through that and like, all right, this is kind of, as I was going through this is what I was thinking, and this is this is where I got kind of caught up, and I found it was for me, it was kind of a cathartic. It was like a journal, but then being able to take that and just kind of turn it into this document that other traders could read. And what I found is it really resonates. And even though, it's funny because some people have said, I'm really surprised that you shared some of the stuff that you did, but I really appreciate it. And so I thought that was interesting because it wasn't meant to gloss over about this fantastic year. It was like, look, this is the real shit that, I was thinking and dealing with during this year, and just kind of laying it all out there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm a little bit in awe of, the level of candor in today's world that is in here, right? I mean, not only your finances, but your thoughts about, struggles that you had through the year. It really is like, I feel like I'm reading your private journal when I'm reading this article, and yet it's out here for the world to read. So I guess my question for you is, how do you know, or how do you get the courage to do this? I mean, are you afraid when you put that kind of stuff out there, or walk me through your feelings?
I totally hesitated when I was done with it. I was like, there's a lot here. And, I've even had potential business partners find it and say, well, are you sure you want to do this? Because in that Medium article, what you said was, I'm like, no. I wouldn't say that anything has come back to haunt me, but if anything, I think there's, it's very raw and open and honest. And what I found a lot of times is kind of people appreciate that. I go back and forth on, how much of your own personal life do you kind of want out in the world. But on the other hand, on something like this, it is kind of, if you're not a trader, I probably wouldn't be that interesting. And so it's, I think it's a way in terms of, it's going back to the idea that, brands aren't that important, but people are interested in people. What do they stand for? What are their values? And there was no intention to do something like that. It's just like, look, this is who I am and what I believe. And, some of it, you may like, and some of it you may not. But I find that way, it's just people are like, okay, well, at least it's real. And I think it is a little nerve wracking kind of when you get completely open like that. But on the other hand, I've just found that the feedback is very positive.
What was the reaction on this particular article? Because I mean, I only scrolled through half of it. There's still another half to go here. I mean, this is, I would guess if I printed this out, maybe 50 or 60 pages, right? I mean, this is deep. What was the reaction from this, and what is the reaction today?
Well, and what's interesting with this too is because I've read stuff about content. It's have short, 5 short bullet points, and that's the key. And so of course this is an hour-long read, so it doesn't do that at all. But the reaction has been, I pinned this on my Twitter feed, and it's been the most retweets and everything like that. But I get a lot of feedback from just, thank you so much for doing this, or other people in the industry, even competitors. They'll highlight and say, look, if you really want to learn what it's like and understand kind of the raw emotions sometimes that go into trading, read this article. And so it just turned out to be kind of a document that people pass around, and just to understand, like, okay, when things aren't easy, what do you do? Because it's easy to show some, here's some winning trades and gloss over all the challenges that are involved. But I think what I found is that the reaction is just people are like, man, you're human too. Like, this isn't like, this is the same stuff I'm going through. And I think people appreciate it at least. And I would talk about some of the ways I'd try to get through it, or different books that I like that help with it. And so I found it was actually really interesting, and people resonated with it. And I was surprised because when you send it out there, you just don't know what the reaction is going to be. But it was really positive.
Yeah. Well, it's I think no one can argue that it's that it lacks authenticity, because it's kind of amazing. Would you say this piece went viral?
Yeah, this is one where it was passed around a lot, and there's a lot of comments on it. So I guess I don't know if it's on the public version, but on my version, there's a lot of comments on it. I could see what people are highlighting. It was passed around a lot and recommended a lot, and that was something that, at least within our community, certainly was a viral piece.
Okay, all right. You had another viral piece too on the other end of the spectrum, so not so serious, but a lot more lighthearted. You want to tell us a little bit? Well, there's this this parody right before he trades from Carrie Underwood.
Oh, God.
Parody.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So let's take a look at this. So walk me through this one, because this one looks pretty funny. Oh, hold on, I gotta reshare that again because I didn't share the sound. Let me share this one more time. So you think that I would be able to do that by now? Oh, it's because okay, never mind. I got it. Here we go. All right. So yeah, let's check this out for a little bit. So so here comes before he trades, a Carrie Underwood parody. This is you, right? Like,
yes. So this is so we took her lyrics and rewrote it for Traders, and then hired a singer.
So this goes on for quite some time, and
right now he's actually swing trading with no stop loss, and I wonder what he's thinking.
All right, we could go on for a while, but
yeah, it's fun.
All right, so walk me through this. How did this thing get made? How did you create this thing?
It's funny thinking back on it. I don't know where I'm not exactly sure where the idea came from, except it's like, wouldn't it be funny? Wouldn't it be funny to see some kind of video around trading like that? And the Carrie Underwood song, I think I was watching the Carrie Underwood video of the song, and I was like, something like before he cheats, and then she's taking a baseball bat and beating the crap out of his car. I thought, wouldn't it be funny if, some girl gave her boyfriend all her money, and then he lost it all, and so she takes a baseball bat and beats the crap out of his computer. And that was kind of the idea. And then from there, I was just finding, it was in Austin. We found a kind of a director, auditioned some singers, and it was fun, and it was it got a lot of for traders just loved it. They're like, oh, ha ha ha, they get all the references and stuff like that, and it was just fun. And it actually, what was interesting with that one is as it got passed around, someone who ended up becoming a business mentor for me, Tom Sosnoff, he founded a company called Thinkorswim, sold it to TD Ameritrade, and then he formed another broker after that and sold it to another company. Yeah, but he saw it and was like, this is really cool. We got to talk to this guy. And then that ended up being this great partnership over 10 years. And so what's great about content like that, especially if it's kind of maybe original and creative, is you send it out into the world and you don't know exactly what's going to come back. And but that's the interesting part. It's like, okay, and that actually created opportunities that I probably wouldn't have had otherwise.
That's incredible. Yeah. And it sounds like, that kind of partnership. Do you think that would have happened without something like this?
So he was in a position where he had people like me calling him all day long, and he was just like, whatever, if I got to hear from one of these people again, and
forget about it.
Yeah, forget about it. Yeah, he's Chicago. He's like, I hear this lame stories all day. So it was a way to kind of stand out from the pack, and it caught his interest. And we saw each other at a trade show. He's like, oh my God, I love that video, and and so. And that was interesting. I didn't think about it that way. It's kind of, it's people want to see something that's creative and unique, and not like, oh my God, here comes another one, kind of a thing. And so that was a good lesson learned too, in terms of just, you throw stuff out there. And, and I think that's one of the things with AI right now is, with AI, there's a lot of content out there that looks exactly the same. And so if you're going to stand out, you want to absolutely use AI, but remember, what they want is what they want is your opinion on it, not Grok's, and stuff like that. So just keeping aware of that.
Yeah. So, and that brings me to kind of like the last topic I want to talk about, which is what's next for you and Simpler. I mean, you're right. We are in a world where now everything could potentially be AI. I mean, how are you going to stand out in the crowd in a world that's kind of like now an ocean of AI?
Yeah, it's a great question, and we've had this interesting phase. I kind of became an accidental entrepreneur. We built up Simpler Trading, and then end of 2021, sold it to private equity, and about what is today? About a month ago, ended up buying it back. That's a long story.
All right.
It didn't quite, and it's good. It's kind of fun. I kind of thought when we sold it, I was kind of like going to retire and all that, but that's boring. So we've got it back. And what's exciting about that is that now we can kind of dive into things like, all right, well, what happens if we start using AI agents, or do we create an LLM, just based on all the stuff that we've done over the last 15 years and uploaded to YouTube, and we can use that as a repository for traders to ask questions. And so I think there's a lot of cool things that you can do once you've created a lot of content, and then you put kind of AI on top of that, then you get a lot of interesting things there. And so is that something that we monetize, or is it something that just becomes a place for people to ask questions about trading and things like that? We're not sure yet, but it's super exciting and something to look into.
Absolutely. Very cool. So how's it been going 30 days in? You said it's 30 days, right? So how's it been going so far? What back at the helm?
Yeah, well, the good news is like, I obviously know the business. The people have changed. We at one point we had 150 people. We're at 50 now, so it did shrunk during that period. But I know a lot of these folks. We work together in the trenches, and so there's a lot of trying to get back to an entrepreneurial culture, because it got kind of corporatized, and giving permission for people to do things and not ask for permission. And we're starting to kind of break through some of that. But that part's fun, and I wouldn't say it's like steering the Titanic, because everybody was super excited to like, all right, you mean we don't have to do this anymore? But at the same time, it's a business, right? So like, all right, guys, let's find some stuff here that works and get some stuff out there, because obviously some of this stuff wasn't working. Dealing with tech stacks and all that kind of stuff. So it's a lot of work, but it's fun.
All right. Well, John, how does the world find you and find Simpler Trading?
So, Simpler Trading is simply, simplertrading.com. So if you're into any kind of trading or swing trading, it's a really great site for that. If you're like a long-term investor, it's not necessarily for that. I would recommend something like Investors Business Daily. On Twitter, that's for just @ John F. Carter. And there are some parodies out there. So if somebody ever DMs you and asks for money, that's not me. But you get a lot of that in the space. But those are probably the two easiest ways.
That's great. All right. Well, John, thank you so much for being on Content Kingdom. We really appreciate it. And you are just an absolute inspiration on anything anybody can do with content. So thank you very much.
Well, thanks, David. And I'd say, look, I think it's awesome what you're doing with content and the Content Lion and the software that you're creating. And what's interesting about when you create content, what's hard is you got to get it out there. And everything that you're doing is making that so much easier and intuitive. And I think that's awesome. And so congratulations, first of all, and thank you for doing that.
I appreciate it, John. What's your favorite social media platform?
Instagram.
Best content you ever made?
Best content ever made was a live trading video over the course of an hour, where I had my first $1 million trade in Tesla, and I happened to record it all while it was happening. And that was fun and scary and exciting. And when it went out there, people were, just going, "Oh my God."
Describe the worst photo of you ever.
I do this a lot when I'm getting my picture taken for some reason. Is a lot of I close my eyes, so I'm like, that happens quite a bit.
What is the most photogenic animal on the planet?
Oh, definitely a kangaroo.
Do you love drones or hate drones?
I love drones because they help me find some zebras I was missing, and so that's been pretty good.